All right, so here's my current project I'm working on. Customer Samurai. I'm fixing an oil leak in the transmission. So I got the transmission pulled out last night. Oil was coming out of this little, I don't know what you call it, it's like a little vent or drain in the bell housing. Oil was pouring out of there pretty bad. First thought was maybe that seal, but that's actually up above the oil fill level. It would leak when it's just sitting. So I figured it was probably the seal of this front bearing plate. And pretty sure that's what it is. It looks like there was a little narrow path where the sealer was, just wasn't there. And then these lower bolts were also loose. This transmission had been recently rebuilt, and just I don't know, somebody missed that spot with the sealer. It's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. So got it pulled out. I'm gonna get this stuff cleaned up. New bearing just showed up, so I'm gonna get this pulled out and put a new bearing, or not a bearing. Gonna change this seal out, just because. So it's just one of those things. If you don't do it, that's gonna leak next. So that's what I'm gonna do this afternoon. Get that cleaned up, resealed, new seal. Put that all back together and get this thing put back in. You can see this has got a 1/6 adapter plate on it. The Samurai's got a Sidekick 16 valve, 1.6 liter in it. I think Trail Tough installed this. Pretty nice setup. But yeah, this thing gets wheeled hard. It's on Toyota axles. I believe it's got 529s. It's got 38-inch Maxxis tires. I've done a lot of work to this thing in the past. It's got to be, I don't know, close to 10 years ago. I cut it in half and stretched it 14 inches. So added 14 to the wheelbase and the tub, and then dovetailed it. Each corner is pushed in 5 inches. You can kind of see the taper and the inner fender boxes I made. So yeah, 10 inches total out of the tailgate. Tailgate's not on it right now. Normally it's got a tailgate. So I did that, like I said, 5-8 years ago, somewhere in there. I've done some modifications to the steering. When I first started working on this thing, it had a Sidekick power steering box on it. We put an 80 series Land Cruiser steering box in it. It's got a lot more power than the Sidekick box. And then we did like a TC style pump. Most of the factory pumps, Toyota and Suzuki, they don't put out a ton of pressure. I believe this was the 1600 PSI, something like that. Makes a huge difference. Pretty similar to what I have in mine. I have a 1600 whatever PSI pump, and then I have a Toyota IFS pickup box. I think they're probably pretty similar in strength. It looks like the internal piston inside is about the same diameter between the two. Great setup. I mean, honestly, especially for mine, which is 33s, like I have no issues steering mine. I can be up against a rock and it'll just push the rig over. With these monster tires though, he's wanting more. So down the road, we're gonna add a ram assist to it because these are stickies. And he goes in a lot more hardcore rocks than I typically do. So what else have I done? A while back, he had somebody put these air shocks on it, and it sat really high. He wanted it to sit lower. It was about 5 inches taller than it sits here. And so it had 14-inch travels on the front and 12s on the back. I pulled them off and flip-flopped them. I put the longer ones in the rear. The top of the 12-inch travel guys used to sit on tabs right off of this tube. So I cut that off and then made these towers. or hoops or whatever, and got the top way up in there to get the ride height down low, and then at ride height, the shock sits about 50-50. So it's got about 7 inches of up travel and 7 inches of droop. And I built this a little asymmetrical so you can still get the fitting in to adjust the nitrogen pressure with it on the rig. And then in the front, I had to cut the tabs off and made longer tabs because the shock was shorter, and then built this plate to reinforce it all. The tabs are like keyed into this and welded here. And then basically just mounts into the factory Toyota lower shock mounts. You can see the top of the 3-link, that's something else I did. This thing was, it's a modified Rocky Road Outfitters coil kit. There's not much of it left, but somebody had built radius arm setup on this. And you can see there was a link bolted here and it went up to there. And radius arm setups, I'm not really a fan. There's a lot of bind. And this one was actually, because when the radius arms, when this side goes up, it rocks back, and the far side over there in articulation, it would go down and roll forward. So you can see like it's trying to twist the axle, and the axle is pretty rigid. It doesn't want to twist, and so it breaks things. So it's tearing that tower off of that side, or the radius arm mount. And so I repaired all the cracks and made some reinforcements, and then built this upper piece right above the third member, and then that's the third link, and it goes back and it mounts inboard to the frame. You can see it's got adjustable holes. There's some of the lower ones. So it really frees up the travel, gets rid of the bind, and in my opinion, just works a lot better. And that was the last bit of work I did. Did that probably a year and a half ago. And did also we added a sway bar to the front. These air shocks can have a ton of body roll, and it did. And so we added this Speedway Engineering, it's a 1-inch diameter sway bar. It's got pretty long arms that are about 18 inches long. And so the 1-inch bar still feels pretty soft and allows good articulation. It just keeps it from feeling sketchy on side hills and off camber stuff. Customer's been real happy with it. So yeah, right now, just fixing this leak. Gonna get this thing all sealed back up and stuck back in today. And then he's got a couple trips planned, I think, and then we're gonna do a ram assist on the next go around. Gonna drill and tap that box and figure out a good place to mount a ram. Get this thing steering good. So that's what I'm up to right now. This is kind of I've shown a lot of stuff I've built on my rig, but this is kind of what I do for a living, is fab work and working on other people's rigs. There's a quick little update on something I just finished on mine. One video I showed collecting parts that I was working on, but I got the rear disc brakes finished. I got a couple little things. I got to do some line clamps on my new brake lines and a couple little things, and do a little more bleeding. It's still got some air in it, but got the Willwood rear brakes all set up. It seems like it's got a way more stopping power already. And it also knocked off 7 pounds per side of weight, which, probably not gonna notice, but that's been my mission on this thing lately, is trying to knock some weight off it, because it's last time it was weighed, race ready, was 2,800, and in the last couple weeks I've knocked about 100 pounds off it between the brakes, pulling all my thick plastic skid plates off. What else have I done? Just a lot of stuff that was in it for racing. Like I always carried a high lift and spare axle shafts. Stuff like that. I've just been, since I'm just using it for play lately, just getting rid of everything that doesn't have to be on it. These shock reservoirs, I just changed the mounts on those. I was running these extruded finned covers. I bought these because they look cool, but these things are 2.5 pounds each, and it's like, it incorporates the mounting, and that reservoir just slips inside. But honestly, my shocks never get hot, even running it really hard through whoops and stuff. And so just to simplify it and lighten stuff up, I pulled those off. Yeah, that's what I'm working on for this thing. Just trying to slim it down. Be taking it out in the dunes here in the next couple of weeks. So I just got to finish up the bleeding of the brakes and mount the hard lines to the housing, and then put the sand tires on. And just need to kind of give it a bolt check, make sure everything's good and tight still. I haven't done that in a while. Get this thing out and play with it. I'm going to try to get some better video of me out actually running it and stuff this time. But anyway, that's what I've been up to. If you've got any questions on this thing, feel free to ask in the comments. Thanks a lot.